Okay, hi, I'm Rebecca. I study IR and social anthropology, and I'm a third year, and Taylor and I have been close friends for a little while now.
Yes, we have. So I start kind of every interview with this, but what's your earliest memory?
I think probably just being in daycare, like before preschool,
Mm-hmm.
just like building forts with other children,
What kind of forts?
like out of sofa cushions and things like that.
Oh, lovely. I still do that
Yeah.
today. You gain those skills at an early age.
Oh, I'm never opposed to a fort.
Nor should you be. So what was little Chewy? Oh, I call her Chewy, just putting it out there. What is little Rebecca like?
Um, I would say quiet, sort of reserved, but also still very tenacious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I liked to roughhouse a lot. Like I had a brother, so
Yeah.
we would play outside a lot. And
How much older are you than your brother?
2 years.
Mm-hmm.
2 years, 2 months, 27 days, if we're being specific. But yeah, so we would play together a lot, like kind of like fighting and playing all the time.
What kind of relationship do you have with him?
Um, well, we're not close because we're exact opposites. I think you could never find more opposite siblings. Just like personality wise, physically, just like because he's so tall and I'm not. Um, and like definitely we would fight genuinely as well as jokingly. But we've gotten to the point where it's just like we acknowledge how different we are.
Yeah.
And we don't hang out or anything, but we don't
Yeah.
fight.
What
we
kind
just
of
coexist.
what kind of older sister do you think you are? Or do you want to be if you haven't
Um,
realized that yet?
See, we're so close in age that I was never a role model. Especially
do you not think?
because we never wanted to do the same things. I was very academic and he was not. And I think it was best that you never want to compete with your siblings because it's so hard. You don't want to have to be compared.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just because I was more academic and he was more athletic and just having different passions, I think he probably found me annoying because I could be patronizing sometimes because he would make interesting choices that I perhaps would not have made. But
Were you protective in that way, or like trying to be like, hey, maybe don't make those choices, or was it more just a
it's not.
laugh at him for making it?
It's a little bit of laughing, a little bit of like, get yourself together.
Yeah. Do you feel responsible for him in any way?
A little bit, but not that much. He's he's very independent.
Yeah.
I only probably would have discussions with him if things he does directly affects me, because he probably wouldn't listen to me otherwise. Because he's a very tenacious child as well.
Yeah. Describe 10-year-old Rebecca.
10, fourth grade.
Yeah. Around that age.
Yeah, an emotional child. Definitely. Do you know how many times I had to like go into a room with a teacher with my friends and we had to like do talking turtle and like talk out our issues?
No, I don't.
It was quite a few times. We would write each other letters sometimes to discuss our feelings because we just couldn't handle doing it in person anymore because it was too much.
Oh my goodness.
I was very imaginative.
Mm-hmm.
My friends and I played pretend a lot. We like constantly lived like every recess in these like elaborate fantasy worlds that would play out. Yeah.
Why do you think you had to have those like super emotional conversations especially at such a young age too?
I think we were very dramatic children.
Mm-hmm.
Just because at that point I had like a very tight-knit group of best friends and we spent so much time together that like the littlest things would just be blown up because there's always that one who likes to start things.
Was that you or no?
No,
oh, okay.
like I just feel like things would get blown out of proportion because you'd tell someone something and then they'd like misconstrue it. Like I think we had an entire argument about nail polish colors. Like it was silly things that we would just get offended by in the long run, just because we were very emotional children.
I love it. What was kind of your takeaway from elementary school going into middle school. Did you go to the same?
Yeah, I've
Was
been
it-
at the same
Oh,
school
okay.
since kindergarten through
Through high
12th
school.
grade. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you have that same group of emotional, dramatic friends the whole time, or?
I've had like one of them
Oh.
since the first grade through
Hopefully
12th
not
grade.
the shitster.
No.
No, okay.
And then some like became more acquaintances, and then I became closer with others over time. But yeah, I would say elementary school to middle school.
Was there a difference because it was the same school?
Maybe a little bit. I think I made, because a lot of new kids come in with middle school and then a lot of new kids with high school. So I made more friends, a little bit like some new groups of friends. It wasn't that much of a shift. Like, I think it was more of a shift becoming like 13 than it was a shift between
Why do you
school.
say that?
Because I think 13 was a hard time.
Yeah.
I think becoming a teenager is really difficult for everyone, especially for young girls, I think.
What was your experience with it?
I think I was just, like, emotionally volatile as a child. Not in a way that impacted others, but in a way that really impacted myself. I was just very moody, which was only exacerbated with becoming a teenager. I had a lot of, like, insecurities about, like, not only physical appearance, but about, like, being liked and, like, about wanting to always be, like, have friends, like, be good in school, be a good athlete, be good at, like, feeling adequate was something that I think I always, like, strive for, but it was always hard because you never feel good enough.
And it's so hard to get the validation you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because everyone's kind of thinking the same things.
Yeah.
And then not really realizing that everyone's thinking the same things
Yeah.
too. And you're just like, we're all in the same boat.
It's such a toxic little cycle.
It really is. What would you say your catchphrase for 13-year-old Chewy was then? What was, if you could sum it up? Or if you actually had one.
See, the thing is, I think I might have had one, and
Oh,
I
really?
really wish I could remember it. Maybe something like, back off, I'm here now.
I love it. Do you think that's changed?
Something that's a little sassy, but also a bit, like, proud.
Yeah.
I don't think the sentiments changed that much.
Yeah. The way you enact it, maybe.
Maybe a little different.
So talk a little bit more about the school you went to. What kind of environment was that?
Well, I went to the same school as my father and his brothers, and that my grandfather went to.
And this is in Baltimore, yeah?
Yeah, it's in, like, Baltimore County. So it's just a small private school on, like, a very, like, private campus. It's really beautiful. It, like, almost looks like it could be a college. And it's always felt very like home to me because I was there even before I went there. And I spent all of my formative years there, like 0 to 18.
Yeah.
And my parents were married there, were just very ingrained into the community. And it always felt to me like a community. Like, I spent all my time there, and I always, like, loved it.
How did where you grew up then shape your identity?
I think Maryland's interesting in that it has a lot of clashing things going on. So you have, like, kind of a northern Yankee identity. You have, like, southern identity because it was a slave state, but it stayed in the Union, so you have that kind of identity crisis, like, right in the middle of the Atlantic. You also have you have rural areas, which is where I was when I was, like, 5 and under, and then suburban areas, which is where I have been since then, and then urban areas, which is interesting because the rural areas are very white conservative, and the urban areas are very diverse, very large black populations. So I think that my family comes from a more rural, kind of white background, which definitely made me kind of a little shit as a child.
How so?
Because you don't realize how you're being taught until you learn better.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, at 10, if somebody had said to me, like, unironically, we should have, like, a white awareness month, I'd be like, okay, because I wouldn't think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and that's something that, like, shitty white people in rural areas might say. So I think that, like, as I grew up, it was realizing that there's a lot more nuance to things, that, like, the world is a lot less homogenous than I would have been led to believe. And, like, my school became more diverse over time. I think that's the nature of private schools, because it takes a lot of privilege to be able to pay for a kindergartner to go to school, you know? So then, like, with middle school, we'd have more, became more diverse, and then high school, because there's, like, more scholarships, was really diverse. So I think every year it was just, like, learning that there was more than the white Republican perspective of the world.
Do you have any moments or experiences in particular that kind of shaped that part of you?
I think it was a pretty gradual process. I don't think I can identify. I think in part it was, I had amazing teachers. Mm-hmm. And I think that just throughout going, like getting a good education, it was very gradual.
Do you remember do you have, like, one teacher in particular that shaped you as a kid or student?
I have, like, multiple. So from elementary school, I have Miss Hailstone, who I still talk to. She's British. And she was with me when I was my little volatile, emotional child. And then in high school, I had a lot of great support systems, but I had a teacher, an English teacher named Mr. Abbott, who I just so greatly admired, because he was so intelligent, so witty, so open-minded, so, like, interesting to talk to. He made me want to, like, learn more, like, constantly, just become better.
Nice. On a little bit of a different thread, what parts of your parents do you see in yourself, and how do you feel about it?
I have my mom's sass, like, her tenacity, definitely her stubbornness, which can be volatile. Because, like, I always say, like, we're 3 generations of Aries women, and that's not something to be taken lightly. So we sass each other a lot. We play the line between, like, are you joking, or are we actually annoyed with each other right now? Because sometimes just the tone of our voice can set each other off. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, why are we fighting? It's just, like, just because we are too sassy. With my dad, I think I got more of his reserved nature. Mm-hmm. My mom's very extroverted, and then my dad's just very quiet. And I think I got that from him, because we spent a lot of time together when I was young, because he would read to me every night from 0 to 12. So I definitely
Every single night?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, and then we still would read things together, like the same books after that. So I think I got my love of reading from him. Mm-hmm. Definitely a quiet independence from him. Yeah. Whereas my mom just, like, flourishes among people. My dad and I are much better with spending time independently.
You talk about reading and books. Do you have a formative text that kind of shaped your childhood or adolescence?
It's so cheesy, but Harry Potter was my life for, like, it's, like,
still
so
is,
my life. I would say that one. Philosophically, it's going to sound really counterintuitive if you know me, but The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. Mm-hmm. Just because he was my existentialist awakening. I was just like, what does the universe mean? Yeah, and then I would say the next big literary shift was towards a feminist perspective with, like, Sylvia Plath. So we had, like, fantasy, existentialist, feminist waves.
What attracts you to Harry Potter? What do you get from it?
I love fantasy. Yeah. I love reading as an escape. Mm-hmm. I think it's, like, I think wish fulfillment is something beautiful, and I know that a lot of people, like, think that literature should be gritty or hard or real, but I just think that there's something amazing about, like, looking at a world where you don't need to settle for anything, a world where magic can exist, a world where you could be the chosen one, and, like, live that alternate life. I just think fantasy lets you explore like themes of friendship and love in like a fantastical setting where you get to go on an adventure. So it's still the same things, but you get so many like mythical and mystical elements too that bring like magic and intrigue to a world where like we don't always get it in our everyday lives.
Did you ever write any of your own stuff?
I wrote fan fiction for a little bit.
Yeah? Of Harry Potter fan fiction?
Yeah, and like Hunger Games. Not like, I would prefer to read it rather than write things. But a little bit. I mostly like would imagine stories in my head. So now that, I think it's probably because of reading every single night as a child, I think myself to sleep. So I come up with elaborate stories.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. No, I like think myself to sleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're more mundane, like having like a conversation with people, and other times I'm just like, what if I had magic powers that I discovered by turning 21?
I guess moving more to St. Andrews, what led you here? How'd you arrive here?
Well, I had like Ivy dreams as like a freshman. But then St. Andrews sent a representative to my school, because we had representatives from all kinds of different schools come to give half-an-hour talks.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was amazing. I thought it was so romantic to like live abroad, especially in a town that's just like quaint and ancient and so full of history.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought like it was so unique and so adventurous. And it was also a very good school. And especially when I became really disillusioned with the whole American school application system and like the whole like Ivy ranking kind of
What kind
system.
of turned you off that? What don't you like about it?
I think it's, again, like, I think the American system makes you feel so inadequate because there are so many X factors that you can't identify. And you'd go into interviews and you wouldn't get things, and it's hard to know why. Whereas the British are just like, it's more if you have the marks, then you can, like, clearly understand your trajectory. That, like, wanted me too. Because I think you feel that way once you've started applying to schools. It's just like you're throwing your entire being out there.
Yeah. And
then they're telling you no when, like, you put your, like, the culmination of, 18 years of your life out there, and they say it's inadequate.
Yeah.
And I understand it's not about other people being unqualified, because I know there are a million amazing qualified people going to amazing schools in the U.S. It's just trying to find where you fit in the whole big system.
So, kind of exactly what you're moving off what you're talking about. How do you fit into St. Andrews, and in what ways don't you fit in here?
I fit in very clearly to the women's football club. I think that's where my heart is, in St. Andrews, which is interesting because I didn't know if I was going to do it. I didn't, like, the day of give it a go, I was thinking, do I go? Do I not?
What was your hesitation about it?
Well, football was important to me in high school, but it didn't define me the way that it does here. I was very interested in a lot of different things, in reading and like the arts and music and academics. But I never fit into like a sporty or athletic clique, so I didn't know. And I know that in colleges it just becomes all encompassing. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't, because I had never fit into that kind of social life before, I didn't know if I would enjoy it here. But obviously I'm glad I did, because most of my friends, like almost all of my flatmates, are in football. I'm on the committee. I spend all my time like doing it, and it's very satisfying for me. In what ways don't I fit in? I don't think I fit into like St. Andrews's ambitious aspects. I feel like so many people are doing so many things and are so aspirational, but it's all towards this like big goal. And maybe that's because I do IR, and everyone's always thinking about their next political internship and talking about all the amazing things they do and constantly desiring to network. And I just don't enjoy that aspect. Mm-hmm. I like really love learning about IR, but I just don't think I fit into the ultra elitist, like ambitious, because I'm ambitious, but not in the same way. I don't think I measure.
Quite cutthroat sometimes. Yeah.
I don't think
showing.
I want to feed into the cutthroat aspect
Yeah.
of St. Andrews or any of the elitist parts. I don't think I really associate with any
Yeah.
of it.
What kinds of stuff do you do that's, I mean, you talked about football, but how do you kind of feed your creative soul here, if you will? Because you said that was part of your life in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, or is it something
That's
you've let
one
go?
thing I think that I'm lacking here.
Mm-hmm.
I think I miss like music and arts a lot. And the thing is, you can always like maybe go into it, but it's hard like when you're later. It's hard to like go into different social spheres. I think I get it through reading in my spare time still. Although it's harder and harder because you have to read 200 pages of academic work per week. But yeah, that's something that I think I miss.
Mm-hmm.
I do have coloring books, which are nice for relaxing.
Yes, I agree. You've given me one. What do you like most about what you study? And why do you study it?
Okay, well, with IR, I think everything's political,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I enjoy IR. I love microanalyzing everything. I love the post-colonial feminist constructivist aspects of IR. They give you so many interesting ways to view the world. And then with social anthropology, I like how it humanizes IR because you talk so much about power and like states and like the economy and like those are important, but they're not as concrete as the way people experience the world. Like, how do people respond to these changes? How do they cosmologically view things in the way that it's different from our own? And I think good social anthropology is about empathy, like completely trying to understand another person's perspective. And I think that's such an important human emotion and something that I always want to improve and bring into my life.
Yeah. Hence said project and participant. So what do you see for yourself in the future? What do you want to do with your degree?
Well, I'd like to go into international human rights law, or at least study it. And then I don't know if I personally feel the need to be in a court, but I do want to work in a legal sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think international law just speaks to me more than domestic law. Like, I think civil rights is something that's so interesting, but I'm really more interested in engaging with the international level of humanitarian law. Why
do you like that international level of humanitarian law?
Maybe it's because I've spent so much time studying IR. Maybe it's because I don't believe anything's truly domestic anymore. Maybe it's just like there are so many things outside the U.S. that I want to be able to engage with. And also, I think it gives me more of a comparative political perspective, which I enjoy.
Yeah, that works. What role does feminism play in your life?
I think it's so fundamental to who I am. I think feminism was an awakening for me. I think it facilitated so much personal growth for me within a very short span of time. I think junior year of high school, I really started getting into it. And then I think by senior year, by the beginning of it, I was known amongst all my friends, and even among my classmates, as like the one girl who'd be like, actually, I want to talk about gender for this one. I just think it shapes the way I view everything. It's so important to me. When I consume media, when I talk to other people, when I think about politics, I think it imbues everything. I think about it constantly, and I just think, Cynthia Onlow came to talk to us, and she's a really renowned IR feminist, and she was talking about how the patriarchy is such an interesting analytical tool for politics, because more so than just looking at sexism, which is a facet of patriarchy, it allows you to look at gender dynamics and misogyny and racism and post-colonialism in such an interesting way. And I just believe feminism is so emancipatory. I think it made me a more confident woman. I think it made me so much more comfortable in my skin. And even like when I don't feel great now, I think it's something that can uplift people and free people if we do it right.
Have you had any negative responses to your views?
Yeah, I think my parents view it as a joke.
Feminism or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like my love of it. I think it's more hilarious to them.
Why?
Than anything. Maybe, well, my dad's a Republican. I don't know. I feel like that should say a lot. And my mom is too, although she kind of gets it a little bit more. But I think she was in that kind of in-between waves. Like, she grew up in that backlash period where women were like, they didn't need feminism in the same way, so they kind of eschewed it all together, like between second and third waves. I think they take it more serious now because they know it's something that impacts my whole life. I also think my friends initially at home initially really laughed at it because I would say something like I would like just mention the word and people would be like either laugh at you or say like, oh, that's too far.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah,
it's like, oh gosh, it's not always like that. Like, it's not always about this, but it is.
Yeah.
Like, no. How has your experience been in St. Andrews in relation to gender, and how do you navigate St. Andrews as a woman?
I do think it's good that we have the feminist society, although I don't think any society in St. Andrews is particularly outreaching. That's not just a commentary on them, but just a commentary on how societies don't get to meet that often. They don't have a lot of funding.
Yeah.
It's hard to disseminate information when there's so hard to connect with 7,000 people, and Facebook's typically not enough because you have only a few hundred friends on there.
Yeah.
I think it really impacted me in my first and second years when I got to choose tutors because I would only choose women.
Yeah.
I just refused to be taught by men anymore because I feel like once you leave elementary school, it just becomes so male-dominated, all of academia. And I just wanted a female perspective on everything. And I liked that I got to choose that. I just felt deprived of female perspectives. So it was really nice to be able to seek them out. It's interesting in a social aspect because I feel like it's hard having female friends who don't think in the same way because there's so much social nuance. So one thing I always feel like I have to have discussions with people about is like drunk sex, because that's like rape is such an important issue, and when somebody's too drunk, regardless of gender, they should never be put in that situation where they wake up the next morning and feel violated.
Yeah.
But so many people here have the perspective that drunk people are going to have sex.
Yeah.
And I think I've definitely learned a lot more nuance about it because I think I came in thinking that like there's no good way to be able to engage with it.
Yeah.
Like with any kind of intoxication and sexual relations. But I think that's something that's really interesting, I guess. Negative, maybe, about St. Andrew's social relations, because I think so many nights out for so many people are about hooking up with people or having sex, and I think a lot of boys at St. Andrews go out with the mentality that they'll buy girls drinks and they'll like somehow like that's a social contract that you've now engaged in, and I've definitely felt on the end of that where even if like he doesn't realize it, a boy buys me a drink and I somehow feel obligated to him.
Yeah, you feel like a guilt and you're like, why do I feel this? Like I didn't offer it.
And it's just like, and it's really, and I've definitely like done things like while drunk that I felt obligated to do that I definitely regretted doing just because I felt like this huge social pressure that like it kind of, because I I enjoy the idea of sex positivity, but
Yeah.
sex positivity doesn't mean that any sex women choose to engage with is positive for them, or any kind of physical relation on the spectrum. So that's something that I think is, because it's so nuanced, is so difficult to engage with here, where drinking culture is so important.
Yeah. How do you feel about the drinking culture in St. Andrews? That came up in another one of my conversations too.
I mean, in a way, it's such a spectrum. Maybe it's because that I participate in it that I don't feel the same about it as other people. Because I like have my academic daughter, like doesn't drink. So for Raisin, like we had to come up with a whole different plan for her because we wanted her to be involved and feel loved and have a good time. But we didn't want to make her uncomfortable. So we got her like a bunch of shitty energy drinks and it was all fine. But I think it's like there's an overwhelming pressure here to engage like with alcohol. It's just there's nothing else to do really. So people that's
It
all
is a small
people
town, yeah.
can do is like go to pubs and have drinks, and then I think that especially nights out are overwhelmingly populated by people who get blackout. And I can understand how that could be really negative for people, because even though I participate in it, sometimes I'm like, can we please do something else tonight?
Yeah.
Other than get wasted, or can we just like drink and not have to go that far? Because I think St. Andrews, everybody feels like they need to take it to the extreme.
Yeah. I guess I'll just go to this one because I quite like asking it. What is your value system that leads your life?
What do you mean by value system?
What things guide your life? What kind of principles or sayings or ways of behaving?
I think that justice is so important to me. More important than I think a lot of people value kindness. And although I think being kind is important, I think that justice is just so much more integral to who I am. Because I think that justice encompasses respect. It encompasses like a sense of fundamental human rights and like equality.
Yeah.
It encompasses like the idea that we all deserve we all equally deserve a certain standard, and that if you break that code, there needs to be some sort of like responsibility, some sort of like consequence.
Yeah.
And I maybe like because I value that so much, it makes me seem not as kind to others. That's for other people too.
Do you feel that? That's the way you're perceived?
I think that sometimes my dedication to moral integrity, because it's so important to me, that it can be seen as like extreme to others, because I definitely come in conversations with my flatmates, like they'll make a joke or something, then I want to have a serious conversation about like what that joke means and like how it maybe isn't funny, whether it's regards to typically racism, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And then people like don't want to engage because they just want to exist.
Yeah.
On
ignorance
that
is bliss.
Yeah,
almost,
ignorance is bliss. But I want to be a good person, and like doing that is, I think, by adhering to a sense of justice and by developing empathy.
Yeah.
So that you can always try to understand people's perspectives that are different from your own. And sometimes I think that makes me unlikable. Because I think it's hard to like a woman who won't settle. And it's even hard. It's hard.
Or who won't shut up.
Yeah. And especially if they won't shut up. And anyone who's going to challenge you on your fundamental perspectives on the world. Because, like, talking about sexism isn't fun. Talking about racism isn't fun. Homophobia is not a fun topic.
Yeah.
So I think your desire to talk, like my desire to talk about these things regardless of whether they make people uncomfortable or regardless of whether it's polite conversation or like the right setting for it. That's something that I think I do sometimes, and that's something that I think just like makes me seem less kind. But I don't really feel the need to be the kind. I feel the need to change the world.
That is the most perfect. I choose a quote for like every post to like take out, and I'm totally gonna choose that one. Where did this kind of just undying sense of responsibility to the world come from, do you think?
I think because I was always emotional, I was more empathetic. Mm-hmm. I think that's from the nature of being sensitive, you're more in tune to when other people are being sensitive. I also think it's from reading. Just being well read, I think, gives you so many different perspectives. It's a way for children to develop empathy and to learn to think analytically about different people's perspectives. I think it came late to me. I think it's something that I developed in high school as I learned more about intersectional feminism, something that became important to me. And especially, I think I took AP Gov in my senior year, and that's why I do IR. And I think that really taught me a lot because I learned how different my political perspectives from other people's were.
Yeah.
Because you kind of assume that nobody's that racist until you're at a round table discussion with some people and they like talking about the current Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah. And you realize, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is what we're dealing with. And yeah, I don't know like where specifically it comes from. I think it's inherently from my love for all women everywhere. Yeah. Just like because I had such a hard time as a young girl, I just never want any young woman to feel the way I felt. I always want them to have a better way. And especially for young women who had a harder time than I did. Like, I couldn't even imagine. Like, it's hard enough to grow up as a white woman in the U.S. I'll never be able to fully understand how women across the world experience things. Yeah. Yeah, because I do love, like, I do want to help all people. But I think feminism is, like, that emancipatory feminism is at the root of my passion. Just, like, the young girls of the world. They're out there. They are. I care about them.
You talked about kind of getting to know that other people were different than you. Mm-hmm. And then your parents are both Republicans. Yeah. How do you navigate your relationship between, or how did you come to think something different than them? Because I find that a lot of people just go along with their parents' views. I know that's what I did too, but I've since made my own. Mm-hmm. But how did you kind of break off from that and shape your own ideas?
I think I had a very liberal academic environment.
Oh, okay.
Even in school. And I think that not all my friends, a lot of my close friends had more liberal parents. So then I would have discussions with my friends before you really know what you're discussing. Mm-hmm. And you just realize that, like, you could be talking about the same topic and, like, have completely different things to say. And I do think that my politics over time became so much more influenced by my peers. Mm-hmm. And that's what made it more liberal. Yeah. It's just that I shifted away from, like, the elders' perspective and engaged with people my own age.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing you've had to overcome so far? Or what are you still working on overcoming, do you think? This could be two different things, but...
I think it's probably, like, body issues. Because ever since I can remember being 8 and physically hating the way that I looked.
That young?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just because, I mean, I wasn't, like, I was a little bit chubby, like kids are a little chubby. Yeah. But it's something that I always inherently knew. Mm-hmm. Something that every child is taught. Like, you don't think about it, but you're always taught that there's a hierarchy.
Young girls, though, too.
Yeah, yeah, especially little girls. So I was, like, overcome with, like, diet imagery at a very young age. So that I was dieting by the age of 12.
Really?
Yeah. And, like, my friends were, too. It's something we would do together. Like, we'd police each other at lunch.
Yeah.
Like, because you'd come into these packs, like, we're gonna like, only eat apples at lunch today. And then I think especially as I got older, I got into, like, you get to use the internet more, and I got really just overwhelmed by the whole pro eating disorder community on the internet. So that, like, my entire being became consumed by all these images, not only telling you that in order to be valued, you have to be thin, but that, like, giving you tools in order to do that.
Yeah.
And I think I did that I would, like, read it every single day for hours.
Yeah.
Just, like, looking at images of thin women and idealizing them, thinking about eating disorders in a romanticized fashion, because that's something that's, like, still very prominent. And then it's, like, it's a really slippery slope, because it's just, like, it was, like, freshman year of high school, and I thought, like, I want to be thinner. So I started counting calories. I was like, I'll eat 1,500 calories a day and work out. But then it's like, but if you're not working out, you should eat less, so it's 1,200 calories. But then that's such a slippery slope, because you're like, maybe I'll eat 1,200 all the time and work out every single day.
Because then it's just that much more
but
you
then
can do.
1,200 becomes 900, which becomes 700,
Yeah.
which becomes 500, becomes 300. And it's just, every single day my life was consumed by numbers and consumed by my feelings of inadequacy.
Yeah.
So I would measure myself and weigh myself every single day. I knew all my measurements at every moment of the day by heart. You can't pass a mirror without checking to see how physically fat you look.
Yeah.
And I would cry almost every day, just physically hating everything about myself.
Yeah.
And I think it really combined with my, like, emotional volatility and insecurity. And it all manifested in a hatred of my physical self when I was having a lot of issues with feeling academically inadequate, socially inadequate.
Was it kind of your expression of those feelings was monitoring?
Yeah, I mean...
like what you can control, I guess?
I just wanted to be perfect.
Yeah.
I just wanted it so badly because I felt like I was worthless. And it just got so terrible. I didn't realize it then because I always felt fat. But I was, like, looking at pictures is scary because I was so thin.
Really?
And no one noticed, and I think that was really hard for me.
Why don't you think people noticed? Was it...
I think I was really good at hiding it.
Yeah.
A lot better than maybe I seemed. Or maybe people noticed and they just didn't know how to...
approach it?
Talk to me about it. Just, like... And it was mostly just extreme dieting. I really always wanted to be able to throw up, but I never could. So I would try it a lot, but never succeeded. And it's just, I remember I turned, how old do you turn? 15. And my parents took me out to dinner, which is the hardest, because it's easy to hide how you eat at home, but then in a public setting. So I, ordered just a fruit salad, and then it was hard enough to eat that, and I had half a cupcake. And I had to go home and cry and hate myself for days, and then starve myself for days. I would go, for 3 days without eating, just because I hated myself that much.
Yeah.
And then you kind of rebound. So then I got into this cycle of binge eating and then starving. But you gain weight doing that, which only made me feel so much worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was hard because I did it entirely alone. I didn't really reach out to others, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I just felt so terrible all the time. And it, came at the same time as I was experiencing this, existential crisis about the world, nothing. I felt like everything was meaningless. But that's where feminism came in. It kind of saved my life. Which is what?
No, don't worry about it. I have tissue. There's tissues right behind you. You want?
Which is why I just really value it as something that is liberating for a lot of people. And I think it's hard now because your weight fluctuates so much in college. And you're around, I live with 7 girls who always want to talk about their weight or talk about how they look fat in a dress. And it's nothing on them, it's just...
No.
Hearing it always reminds me of where I was. And where I never want to be again.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather be fat than dead. Society might not.
Yeah, which is...
might think
kind
differently.
of upsetting. Yeah, it's upsetting that that's not how it is for a lot.
But that's something that I think I'll never fully leave behind just because it was so formative for me
Yeah.
for so many years. But that's something I'm so proud of because it led me into feminism and
Yeah.
into this empowering place in my life. And just, like, the desire to want to help others. And in that, like, I did it. Like, I saved myself when nobody else was there.
Yeah.
So.
You're strong, too. You're so strong. I mean, I already knew that, but... oh. Ending on a happy note.
Okay.
Not that wasn't happy because you learned something. But what's the biggest lesson that you've learned from your life so far? And how do you take that with you as you go forward?
Maybe the greatest lesson is that it's like a good and bad thing.
Yeah.
It's that life can be terrible. There are so many systems of oppression that exist in the world, and it's so hard to break out of these things that, like, keep us down. Like, these different identities that are either imposed on us or that are denied of us. But that they can be broken down, and that every single day people are liberating themselves and contributing together into tearing down these systems of oppression that exist. And I think it's amazing because I do believe that there's, like, a better world that we can create for ourselves out there. I don't believe in any of these determinist views that, like, we'll always have religious conflict, nothing will ever change, or there will always be homophobes, nothing will ever change.
Yeah.
I believe that, like, every day people are out there changing these systems.
Yeah.
And however hard it is to break them down, the people who are trying to break them down are stronger.
That's so true. Oh, that's beautiful. That's kind of all the questions I have, but is there anything you didn't talk about that you want to, or something, a topic or anything?
I don't know. I think the only thing that maybe we haven't talked about yet is how important friendship is to me.
Oh my gosh, I actually have a question on that too. And here I've been, like, sitting forgetting all my questions. And one of them is, what do you cherish most about St. Andrews, which usually is a friendship. But yeah,
it's definitely in every aspect of my life. I think friendship
let's talk about it.
is the most important thing. More so, okay, not because it usurps familial bonds, it can be an aspect of familial bonds. But that there are people out there that you choose, and they choose you. And it's like your hand reaching out, and they reach out and clasp it. And, like, it's something that is selfless.
Yeah.
And can be so fulfilling. You learn from them. Like, I don't think there's anything that's, like, more cherished to me than friendship. Which, like, I'm really glad that I'm friends with you.
I did this whole thing so that you would say that. Appreciate me, damn it. No. What did friendship give you? Or how are your friendships from high school different than the ones that you've made here? Because I know you're still quite close with people from high school.
See, the thing is, I think that different friends bring different things out in you. I don't think it's a thing of, like, you're being fake. I just think it's that different people emphasize different attributes of your personality. So I think at home, my friends are more goofy, more nerdy and geeky, definitely more, like, eclectic. Whereas my friends here, I think, are definitely more social. Definitely, not that they're normal, because they're not.
Clarify. But, no one on football can be categorized as such.
No one can be categorized as normal. But just maybe more participant in mainstream culture, if that makes sense. Also, I think almost all my friends here are women, whereas my friends at home are more mixed, maybe around 50-50. I also think it's so different because people who, like, when you see each other, like, you remember seeing each other at 8, you have a fundamentally different understanding of this person.
Oh, yeah.
I think university gives you a chance to, like, discover different aspects of yourself, and definitely I became more social because I always thought of myself as, like, hyper introverted, like, within my group of friends, and now I feel so much more socially engaged because all my friends here are very socially engaged, which is really nice.
Yeah. It's quite liberating, too, sometimes to meet people that don't know those parts of you because you can just kind of adapt more. And I mean, it's weird, like, reinvent yourself. Not like reinvent yourself, but be more
like,
open to different traits and allow different things to come out of you instead of just being like, oh, people know me as this. Like, I can't. It's harder to change, maybe.
But it's also just, like, you can, like, wait to reveal your hidden backstory. Like, you don't need to, like, do it right away. Like, with all your friends at home, they can be like, I remember you were a depressed little shit when you were 12.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like, nobody knows that.
Exactly. I mean... yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much for talking to me, too.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.